All right, what is going on, Patriots fans? Jason Cole back with the Patriots Drive podcast today, and we're going to be quickly going over our draft grades. We have grades for each player coming up here. I put it on my Instagram. Cole, this is the first time he's grading it live, and then we'll have an overall grade. But we're going to try to keep it short and sweet with the grades and why we're giving it that, whether it's value, talent, or whatever it is. So let's start off. First round pick that we traded back for, got some extra value in the third round. That's Cole Strange. Cole, what are you giving your name buddy right here?
Yeah, I'm giving this pick a C plus for the Patriots. I don't love, we touched on it in the live yesterday. I don't love taking a guard in the first round, especially a guy who most people had as a second, third round pick. And I know there's been rumors that he was not going to get out of the second round after the draft. That's what a lot of people heard. Apparently, there was a team that was lurking in the 40s, in the 30s, in that range that was planning on getting Cole Strange, whether they trade up, whatever the situation is. So I like the player. I think he's going to be good here. We mocked him here multiple different times. But as far as value of a guard, that's a pick that you make when you have every other position filled in the team. You're a championship contender, and all you need is a couple interior offensive linemen or something like that. The Patriots have success drafting these guys late. So Cole Strange, I gave a C plus just based on the value. I like the player though.
Yeah, I give it a B minus right here. I agree with you. The value is not very high. I loved the player, like you mentioned. We'd mocked him multiple times. For me, number one priority, keeping Mac Jones healthy, keeping him off the ground. That's what they did here. There was an obvious hole at guard. Yeah, maybe it's a little too early. If the rumors are true that there was a team in the 30s or 40s that wanted him, Bill goes out, gets his guy. And there's been multiple GMs that have said, hey, if this guy has Alabama or Georgia or something across his chest instead of UT Chattanooga, he's a surefire first round pick. So if there's other people backing it, I'll trust Bill. And yeah, like we would have probably rather have seen the cornerback or other positions taken there, especially with the value on the board. But I think that they prioritize keeping Mac Jones healthy and keeping him off the ground. And I have no problem with that if that's what they're going. So let's move on to our second round pick. We trade up for this one with pick 50, Tyquan Thornton. Now, this one at the time, I was a little shocked. You got Sky Moore, George Pickens. You got some good receivers on the board here. But it sounds like Pittsburgh was the team that wanted to take Tyquan Thornton, so it was almost necessary for New England to have to move up and take him there. And I don't blame him. Pittsburgh has had a dang good history of drafting receivers, and Tyquan Thornton ran the fastest 40, 4.28. He can threaten people vertically. He can stop and, come back or run deep outs or stuff, and people are so worried about his speed vertically that they have to respect the deep route tree. So I gave this an A minus pick for me. I think at first I wouldn't have given it that, but the more I watch film and the more I hear about that, this guy probably wasn't going to last much longer past 54 if he even got there. I like this pick more. I think he adds a new dynamic to the Patriots offense.
Yeah, I gave this pick a B just based on another thing. There's value for this player. I mean, I get that now we know that, or now we've heard rumors that apparently he was going to be gone pretty soon after that. So they had to get up and get their guy. I'm giving it a B. I think it's a good pick. I mean, I felt the same as you of where I was kind of like, okay, really? We got Sky Moore. I mean, we got Nelson Aguilar, who's already in that speed role. How much is this guy going to play as a second round pick? You want your second round picks and your first round picks and even your third round picks to contribute year one. I just don't know how many snaps this kid's going to get early on with Aguilar and some of the other receivers that we added. We kind of have a lot of players at that position at this point, like solid depth, but we don't have a ton of like superstars or anything like that. So I like Thornton. His speed is something that I'm a big fan of. I mean, the more I watch film on this guy, the more I like it and the more I like the pick. So I'm a big fan of the player. I think it was a good pick. Value is the only thing that comes into question here. And it's a little bit of a risk with your second round pick to take a wide receiver who is so out of the mold of what you normally do. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because the Patriots have not had success drafting these guys. So they completely went away from what they normally do. They got a guy with great top end speed, a guy who's better. He has a pretty good release package, good in the red zone, good height, good hands, even though he's got smaller hand size. I like the player a lot, so I thought this was a good pick. One of our better picks. Next guy up, Marcus Jones, cornerback. I gave this one an A. This is probably my favorite pick of the draft. Just a guy who Belichick is going to use as a chess piece. He is great on defense, great athlete. He's smaller frame, 5'8". He's one of the most electric punt returners in college football last year. He played some offensive snaps as well. Just a guy who can do it all. And he's just a football player. He's just an athlete. And I can't wait to see how Bill uses him. He played a little bit on the outside in college. He projects better in the slot to the NFL just based off his size. But having a guy with his speed and athleticism and his return ability, I think is just going to be a great chess piece for Bill.
Yeah, probably the best value of the class. Maybe there's one other guy that we'll talk about here, but he went where everyone expected him to. And I'm a little concerned about his 29-inch arm length. You don't see many corners playing there, but if he's a slot exclusive, maybe he's the Jonathan Jones replacement. And like you mentioned, Bill loves versatility. And with the first 3 picks, really, you saw the trend of just adding athleticism, getting faster, getting more athletic on the outsides and in skill positions that you needed. And that's what they did with Marcus Jones. He's a true chess piece. He's a guy that's going to do a lot. So I agree with you. I'm giving him an A here. I think that this one, at least they finally went corner at that pick when, we didn't get one in the first 2. So that made a lot of sense for me. Next one here, we're going to go to cornerback Jack Jones out of Arizona State. And I honestly, we should have seen this one coming. I think I was a little shocked not seeing the Zion McCollum, Tyreek Woolen come off the board, but with how much they met with Jack Jones, it made sense to me. I still gave it a C+ just because he's had some off the field issues. And if he can put everything together, I think that he's going to be a great corner. They probably didn't have him valued at a 4th round pick. If anything, this might be considered a reach also. So that's why I bumped him down a little bit. But his athletic ability, a 5-star out of high school, going to USC, great cover grades, made an immediate impact when he got to ASU after he transferred from USC and played a year junior college. And Bill obviously loved this guy. He adds more length than what Marcus Jones does and can play on the outside a little better. So if this is the guy that can, maybe play alongside Jalen Mills or someone outside corner, I'm happy. But I just gave it a C+. This was not the corner I was expecting to come off the board here, but that doesn't mean I don't like the player.
I agree. I gave it a C+ as well for the same reasons. Zion McCollum, Tyreek Woolen still on the board. Players we both really liked, especially McCollum. I just thought the upside, really both those players, the upside they had, if Bill got his hands on him and he can mold these players, I think they could have been really, really impressive players, especially at that value. So the value for Jack Jones here, he was expected to go a little bit later, more towards like the 5th to 7th range. So that's another thing. The grade would have been higher if they got him in the 5th or 6th or in the 6th round range. It would have been a much better pick. I would have gave it probably a A- or B+ or something. I like the player, great potential. If he stayed at one school his whole college career and didn't have the off the field issues, this kid would be probably a 1st to 2nd round talent. He's got the talent. That's no question at all. So I'm excited to see. Hopefully they can mold this guy as similar as a guy like Malcolm Butler, J.C. Jackson, with some of their off the field issues. And they brought these guys in undrafted and turned them into stud players and number 1 corners. So I hope they do the same for this guy, Jack Jones. He's got all the talent in the world. It's just about harnessing that, making sure he keeps his head on straight and getting the best out of this player. So moving on to the next guy, keeping with that trend of the first 3 picks of speed, athleticism, getting faster, Pierre Strong from South Dakota State, running back. This kid is just a yards machine, a touchdown machine, 10 rushes for over 50-yard touchdown, or 10 carries that were 50+ yard touchdowns in his college career. There we go. Couldn't say that for a second. Impressive. The kid is he's a big play machine. He's got speed, fastest running back in the draft, ran the fastest 40 time. This is something the Patriots needed. They needed to add a running back, a guy who can probably be more of a pass catcher. He didn't do a lot of that in college, but he didn't have a lot of opportunities. They really used him as a bell cow back, and he got a lot of touches. So I believe he averaged around 7 yards per carry. Crazy numbers. He did play at a lower level, but when he played at the higher level, when he played some good teams, I think his first game he had like 135, 140 yards and a couple touchdowns. So this kid has all the talent in the world. He's an electric runner. He had a lot of big holes to run through, but at the same time, when you see this kid, he just looked like he didn't belong on the same field as any of these other guys he was playing with. So similar to a guy like Kyle Duggar, you can just see it on tape when a guy doesn't belong at that level, and you can tell this guy looks like he's going to translate to the NFL level pretty well. So having Pierre Strong, Damian Harris, and Ramondre Stevenson as a 3-headed monster, that's going to be great.
Yeah, over 811 yards after the contact, 3.39 yards per carry after contact, and then another record he had. He was tied for the most 15+ yard carries in 2021 with 30. I mean, this dude terrorized the FCS. He's fast, he's explosive. Maybe not, the true hard downhill runner, although he can do that. But when this guy sees an open gap, he's going to hit it fast, and he's going to be gone off to the races. So I don't know if we've had a back in the backfield that can run, like this in a long time. I'm excited to see what he can do. And I think with this next pick in the next couple of picks, what we'll talk about with the other running back taken, you see the writing on the wall that maybe they're preparing for the Damian Harris departure after next season. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out and how many touches he gets here, especially in Damian Harris's last year. So
yeah, real quick, I don't know if I gave my grade. I gave this one an A for Pierre Strong. Great pick.
A+ for me. This was my favorite pick. Just, he went right where he was supposed to go. We had a 4th round evaluation on him. If he can turn into a true 3-down back, get better at pass catching, and get better at run blocking or pass blocking, he'll live up to it, and I'm excited for him. So my highest grade pick right here. Moving on though, Bailey Zappe taking a quarterback, the 7th time New England's taken a quarterback in the 3rd or 4th round since 2001. So not uncommon. You've seen him do it before. Probably going to be the replacement for Jarrett Stidham and Brian Hoyer more into the coaching role and the mentor for Mac Jones. So I had no problem with the pick. A little bit head scratching at first, but totally understand here. I mean, you can never have enough good backup quarterbacks, and I think that he's going to come in and maybe Bill can turn him into a third round pick, or some team's going to be quarterback needy and they want to take a pick on him because a lot of people forget he threw 62 touchdowns and almost 5,800 yards in college at Western Kentucky. So this dude's a gunslinger. He can throw the ball. Maybe not the strongest arm. People want to say he's a noodle arm like they said about Mac Jones and Tom Brady, but he throws it accurately. He throws it on time. And he's just a player. He loves the game of football, high IQ, the type of quarterback that Bill Belichick loves to have on his offense.
Yeah, I gave this one a C plus just because, again, the philosophy of taking a quarterback in the fourth round when your team has so many other holes. I don't love it, but at the same time, the kid's gonna be a solid backup for us for quite a while. It seems like he's got the intangibles. Really smart kid. I think his head in the in that quarterback room is going to be great. He'll be able to pick up some things. Him and Mac can learn from each other, teach each other things. Obviously, Mac is older, more experienced, but Bailey Zappe's a smart guy, so I think he's going to contribute to that QB room, and it'll be good to see. And Stidham will probably be gone. But next guy, Kevin Harris. I gave this pick a C minus. Not because necessarily the player and his talent. We just took a running back, and our running back room is pretty crowded at this point. So somebody's got to go. I don't know if it's going to be Damian Harris after this year because he's in a contract year, but I just gave this one a C minus just because we literally just took a running back. We have so many holes on this roster that we need to address besides running back, and we doubled up. And I just felt like there were better players on the board at that time that we could use at higher positions in need and not running back.
Yeah, I gave it a C minus. Also, he led the SEC in rushing in 2020 with over 1,100 yards, 15 touchdowns, and kind of took a back seat to Zaquandre White at South Carolina. But I think this guy's more of the hard-nosed runner. Maybe he has more true pass-catching ability right now than Pierre Strong, but he doesn't quite have the speed Pierre Strong does. So I think I'm excited to see both of these guys. He can also make people miss. He averaged over 3.48 yards after contact in his career. At South Carolina. So he's got all the tools in the world. I'm excited to see what he can bring. And although it was head scratching at first, that's why we gave it a C minus. I mean, Bill Belichick turns guys like this into dudes, exactly. And a lot of the NFL does at running backs in the late round. So
they're pretty good at running backs, drafting running backs.
They are. So let's move on. Moving on to pick 200 right here. We got Sam Roberts out of Northwest Missouri State. I'm giving this one a B minus. I like the player. There were a couple other defensive tackles maybe I would have liked to have seen, but this is a Division II Defensive Player of the Year. Now you add another Division II Defensive Player of the Year with Kyle Duggar, and you can see what he does. He's a Patriot guy through and through. He's trolling Chiefs fans on social media. He's got his Patriot jersey on, posting pictures when he was younger. So I gave this one a B minus. I'm excited to see what Bill can do with him and see what his role is here in New England with a bunch of other guys on roster, but maybe he has more potential than them. He's just a little raw. See what he can develop into in the next couple of years and see if Bill can make anything out of him.
Yeah, I gave this one a C minus, and maybe it would have been lower if he wasn't a Patriot. Maybe I'll bump it up to a C just because of the trolling Chiefs fans. But just a guy that, I mean, I don't think either of us really knew anything about coming into the draft. He just wasn't a player that was on many people's boards even in the 7 rounds. He was probably more of an undrafted type guy, so the value wasn't great. But hey, if they like a player, it's a 7th round pick. You bet on the upside of this kid. If Belichick liked him, we'll see what the player has, and I'm gonna bet on Belichick for the defensive side of the ball. He most of the time he's right in the draft. Sometimes he's not. Well, but we'll see how it works out. But next guy, Chasen Hines, offensive guard from LSU. I gave this pick a B plus. I just thought it was good value for a guy who, like you mentioned yesterday, a guy who is a great puller. I think he can be used in a multitude of different ways for the Patriots, and just adding offensive line talent and depth to this offensive line room is going to be great. They hit on picks like this all the time. So adding another guy, I trust Bill with his offensive line evaluation. Scarnecchia probably still has his hand in there, even if he doesn't want to say it. I guarantee they're sending him prospects, and he's looking at these late round guys. And I bet he put his stamp of approval on Cole Strange as well. So I gave this one a B plus. I like the pick.
Yeah, Chasen Hines, big mauler of a dude that can pull punches with power, can move well for his size, and this is the type of guy that New England makes into really good players. That's why it was a little head scratching that they went Cole Strange in the first, but Cole Strange has the upside where Chasen Hines was projected to be a little bit earlier than the 7th round or the 6th round when he was taken, but he can develop into something. But I'm excited to see what he can do. Big bruiser, you kind of relate him to the Shaq Mason type coming out of college, and they can pull, and when they're pulling, they're like a freight train on the rails. You don't want to get in front of them. So that takes us to our last pick, guy out of Michigan with 245. New England takes Austin Stuber, offensive tackle, or Andrew Stuber, offensive tackle out of Michigan. I gave this one an A minus. I don't know why, but this was just Mr. Consistent at Michigan. For some reason, Bill Belichick, he went with older guys that were super consistent in college and put up the stats. And it's a little weird talking about the draft process when you're usually trying to get younger in the draft and find potential. But he went with a guy here, and I didn't relate him to Trent Brown, but Trent Brown tested really bad at the combine. Speed, quickness. He's just a mammoth of a man. He's 6'7", over 300 pounds, doesn't move well, but at the Senior Bowl, he performed really well, and he's got high praises from the Michigan coaches. So I see why Bill was intrigued by this guy, took him. I'm not saying he's going to turn into Trent Brown. Trent Brown is, a very good player, and that doesn't happen very often with guys that have the athletic limitations like Andrew Stuber does. But I think that he's a good, interesting prospect and can probably come in and, be a backup tackle right away. And if someone gets hurt, maybe he can step in and play a couple good games.
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfect there. Mr. Consistent. He does the right thing all the time, and that was what one of his coaches mentioned from Michigan is that this guy just, with his technique, with his decision making, with how he approaches things, he just always seems to be in the right place at the right time, and that's a guy that you want on your football team. Somebody who's reliable, somebody you can trust to do the right thing all the time, and that's what Stuber is here. So I gave this pick a B plus. I like the pick a lot. Good value here in the 7th round, getting a guy who can at least be a career backup and can give you some depth of the position, who you can trust in a pickle to throw him in there and he's going to know what he's doing and do the right thing. Does he have the most talent and most upside of a tackle in the world? No, not necessarily. But this guy is somebody who can be reliable and somebody you can trust to throw in there in a situation if you need him to. And maybe he ends up developing more and as he gets in the NFL weight room and does some more of these drills and stuff like that, maybe he becomes a little more athletic and has a higher upside than we actually realize. But this guy is a consistent player who's going to be a steady force in this offensive line room for depth, at least for hopefully a little while.
So real quick, for the overall draft, what was your grade for the Patriots?
I'd probably give it, based on my picks, on my grades, a B minus range, B minus range. I just, if you told me right after the draft ended, it probably would have been lower, but it is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. I want to be positive. I want to put my trust in this coaching staff. This was Groh's first draft of really controlling things on his own. I don't know if it was actually on his own. I'm sure Matt Patricia and Bill Belichick had their hand in there, but I understand the philosophy of most of these picks. Some of them, like Harris and Sam Roberts, those are kind of the head scratchers for me. But Marcus Jones, I love the player a lot. I think he's going to be great. Pierre Strong, I like to pick a lot. And Thornton is a great pick as well. So Hines and Stuber, 2 late round guys who I think could, maybe one of them develops into a gem for the Patriots. I think that's great. But they got some really, they strayed away from what they usually do. They got some fast talent, guys who can be explosive playmakers. And I'm excited to see how they work out. I think a lot of these picks are actually exciting once you dig into the tape of these guys and you say, okay, I can see what they saw in this player and I can see why they think he's going to be good in the Patriots. So better draft than I thought originally. Instant reaction coming out of the draft, but still wasn't great. There was still a ton of talented players that we could have got earlier on. And maybe you take a guard later in the draft. Maybe you get Cole Strange in the 3rd, or maybe you take somebody else in the 3rd that you think can develop into a starter. But this is the board they had. These are the players they liked, and they seem to be happy with their draft. I'm gonna trust the coaching staff. I'm gonna put my trust in these guys and hope it turns out well. A lot of these prospects are intriguing and have some good upside. So only thing that concerns me of the draft, it would have been higher if the value is better for some of these guys. If you got some of these guys later, I think this draft would have been a lot better.
Yeah, not the ideal draft for me and for Patriots fans, and not what we thought they were going to do. But in a way, I love Bill Belichick because he says, F what the media thinks, F what everyone else is saying. I freaking love Cole Strange, and I think this dude fits in our system. I think Tyquan Thornton fits in our system. I don't give a crap that some guy who doesn't know our scheme, doesn't know what we want in our players, thinks Cole Strange is a late second, 3rd round guy. I want him at 29. So in a way, I tip my hat to him. He doesn't give up into the media like that, and he stuck to his draft board. So I gave it a C+ overall. I think that the draft grades are given, A's are given out too much. A needs to be like the ideal draft, and there were a couple teams that had really good drafts. I kind of related to the dunk contest. When everyone gets a 50 in the dunk contest, who's supposed
ridiculous.
to win? It's ridiculous. So when you go look at draft grades and there's 8, 9, 10 teams, half or 3/4 of a third of the NFL that have A's. I don't know if that's really realistic to think. So and all these grades are subject to change. That's the other reason you don't see me giving any D's or F's, is because these guys are NFL caliber players and athletes. You shouldn't be giving them a D or an F until you've actually seen them play a year or two in the NFL. So these guys can change. I'm not saying that Tyquan Thornton's going to turn out to be an A minus. You know, I would have given N'Keal Harry an A at his draft because I loved Arizona State. I loved him coming out. He's an F right now. So these guys can change. It's not set in stone. This is just what we're giving our draft grades and the Patriots after a really crazy, bizarre draft. So make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. Let us know down below what you would change or what you thought of the draft picks. A little bit longer video, but we appreciate you guys watching and continuing to support the channel. Stay up to date with us for the live videos and turn on post notifications so you're alerted when we post or go live. But until next time, we will talk to you later.